Hello, welcome. This is Olio, and usually if you've seen me before, I have a long explanation, but I'm not going to explain it now. This is Olio. It's my first show. It's always been my first show. Okay, but I was going to read you other things, but I want to read you this. You know, this is one of my hats. Another hat is that I am involved in the Auburn Journal, and I made a column on October 8, 2023, and it started off is that east of Logan, Utah, on Utah 89. This was in 2023. We found a trailhead called Temple Fork with local information as well as restrooms, thank goodness. It looked as if there was usually plenty of room to park. However, that wasn't the case this time. A group of obviously eager helpers had set up what looked like either a circus, what with those several colorful easy-ups, or a checkpoint for long-distant runners. This was a group volunteering to assist runners in the annual Bear 100 race. Oh. We learned it's been an annual event for 25 years. Why? How did this start? Want to guess? Huh? Well, it started because of Gordon Ainsleigh. They used his nickname, Gordy, when they referred to him with admiration and awe. Wonder, too. Their faces changed when we told them where we lived. Their thrill. You know Gordy? You've talked to him? You live where he does? Was a thrill as well. I have it now. It's a goosebump. It's a goosebump-filled kick to realize that the idea of a 100-mile running contest occurs in places other than our neck of the woods, solely because of, and this is what I've said, I promise, I'm wrong, I think, solely because of that pretty much relatively retired chiropractor. Gordy was the one who started this, said Barrick Harper, the eager guy I talked to the most. He's the founder of ultra running. If you want to know more, here's the organization's website, bear100.com. So guess who I have here today? I'm thrilled to have Gordy Ainsleigh as my guest. Gordy, thank you very much. This is a kick to have you here.
It hurts me that I didn't get around to running the Bear 100 before I got old.
It hurts you, huh? I'm sorry. Well, but I'm not surprised, because you've been running elsewhere and doing other things.
There are so many.
And lots and lots and lots of things. So before we get to what you're doing now, I would really like to know what made you decide. Well, actually, okay, first of all, Gordon's, can I share your email with them?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Dr. Gordon MV. Dr. Gordon MV.
For Meta Vista.
For Meta Vista. Meta Vista. Hello. Yes. At gmail.com. Also, he has a couple of other places, GordonAinsleigh.com, and you will see how to pronounce it, how to write his name, AINSLEIGH.com. And then there's another, GordonAinsleigh.com/aboutGordy, GORDY.html. And if you want to know about him, if you want to learn everything you can possibly learn about him, there it is. And he's let us know about you.
And I'm on Facebook.
And of course, at Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook.
That's
okay.
probably the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Okay.
Just leave me a Facebook message.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gordy Ainsleigh or Gordon Ainsleigh?
I think it says H. Gordon Prince, or like quotes Gordy Ainsleigh.
Okay. It's Ainsleigh. If it's Gordon Ainsleigh, and then you're on.
There are very few of us.
Very
few Ainsleigh.
Yes. Okay. So you decided to run for 100 miles in one day, long ago. Why?
Well, when I did it the first time,
yes,
I did it on a bareback pad.
You did it on a what?
Bareback pad. The first horse ride.
The horse, the horse.
1971.
Yes. I know.
I did it on a bareback pad. I didn't know anything. I didn't have a saddle. I didn't have stirrups.
Good Lord.
And so I was.
Good Lord, man.
It hurt so badly on my inner thighs.
Didn't make the hack.
That I had to spend a huge amount of time off the horse.
So you were running.
I was walking, I was holding onto the horse's tail, I was leading him on the downhills, holding onto his tail on the uphills.
Did your horse love you?
No, because he wasn't,
He wasn't
we
yours?
were equally, oh yeah, he was mine, but I didn't really know how to train. We suffered equally. It was 10 days before we could walk straight.
Oh, brother.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, it was pretty amazing. I think I probably went through more pain than he did.
Mm-hmm. He had 4 legs.
He had 4 legs. And so, it was... one of the really good things about it was I just couldn't bring myself to quit. I actually tried to quit at White Oak Flat, and they told me, this is just a communications station. You can't quit here. You have to go through that canyon, up the other side, to Echo Hills. And
How old were you?
You can quit there. 24 maybe.
Okay, no wonder they didn't let you quit. They let you quit now, but not then.
Well, so I got into Echo Hills, and Larry Lester, a really unusual guy, because he was a black endurance rider, and he was a kid, he was younger than me, and he said, Gordy, you can't quit now. You're only 17 miles from Auburn. Let me get you a Pepsi. Well, that really did it, because, I never drank alcohol or Pepsis or anything, so it probably gave me about as much of a boost as most people would get from speed.
Okay.
And I just had no trouble getting into Auburn from then,
Okay.
And so what it did was, because Wendell Roby and Drusilla Barner, the king and queen of the ride, they were so impressed that I didn't quit, because they knew what kind of pain I had gone through. And so when I went to get the ride results, they invited me into their office, and they were joking about, all of the, they were talking about how Paige Harper hadn't made it.
Huh. And
I said, God, I thought if I could do it, anybody could. And quick as you can imagine, Drew said, well, that's what we thought too. But yeah, it got me, invited to their next Board of Governors meeting. It sort of got me invited into their circle of people they liked.
Mm-hmm.
And that was huge. I remember Wendell got up to at that meeting, and 3 weeks after the race, and banged the gavel and said, I'm pleased to announce that we have new and more enlightened leadership of Tahoe National Forest. And I went, oh my God, now that's power. There's a story behind that, but no point going into it now. But what happened was, because I spent so much time with my feet on the ground, I was invited to be a partner in the ride and tie race, which required, typically it was about 35, 40 miles of running, or a course, and it required, of course, a lot of running, because you took turns using the horse. And of course all these riders wanted to get a runner who knew how to ride a horse. That was me. So I started training, because I wanted to win. There was like $2,500 prize. And then in 1972, I guess
that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it was a lot of money. So I went up to my old high school, and where this guy named Pete Hansen had arrived, just a veteran, but he'd been racing road races since he was 13, long distance. And so I started running with him, and after a while I realized I had a little bit of talent at this. And so I started thinking about, you know, probably
Maybe you
March,
can do this.
March or April, I started thinking about, oh, I wonder if I could do this. And so I think it was in May, you know, and it was really hot, and I took Pete out on a 35 typical miles of the trail. And
When you say Pete, is this
Hansen.
That's a person. Okay.
Pete was the
Okay.
he was the cross country coach at Colfax.
All right.
Yeah, distance running. And when we got done, I asked him, "Do you think I can do that?" Well, I had to take my horse along because I couldn't run 35 miles yet. He looked at me like I was a village idiot. He said, "No." And then he thought for a minute. He said, "Actually, you know, I don't think anybody can." And of course.
Oh yeah.
I thought, boy, did that make it more attractive.
Okay. Nobody can run a mile in
Under 4 minutes.
Under 4 minutes.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Well then.
You know, and the big thing now is who's going to be the first person to go into the 13s in the Western States. Jim Walmsley made it in, he's just missed it by about 10 minutes. So, you know.
13 hours? 13
go
hours?
Go under 14.
14 under 14 hours. Hours.
Hours.
Of 100 miles.
100 miles, yeah. Over incredible terrain. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he almost got under. It was a little, when he came close, it was kind of a too warm a day.
How old was he? Is he?
I don't know. He's probably about 34.
Okay.
So.
It'll be a young one. It'll be a young one, of course.
Yeah, I mean.
Of course.
Well,
maybe it'll be you.
Long distance runners hit their peak at about 38.
Okay.
And after that, they start slowing down. And 40 is, you know, pretty much, if you're going to set records, that's the limit.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Anyway, so I kept riding, and in '72 I spent the summer with a pretty beach girl from Southern California, and fell in love, and she talked me out of this really good endurance horse I had. I was lucky the first time. I mean, he wasn't fast, but he was really sturdy, which is, you know, I weigh over 200 pounds, so that was what I needed. And then she left me for a guy with really good drugs and took my horse.
Well darn.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, she always said when she died she wanted to go out on cocaine, and I go, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know anything about drugs.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Oh.
But you know what?
Anyway.
You know what? Think of all of the good. I mean, I've had people come up to me and say, if you hadn't invented this kind of sport, I wouldn't have chosen to continue being here. Make that big a difference, you know.
Running, running.
Just doing
this
that
far.
long running, yeah.
They wouldn't have. They wouldn't have.
They wouldn't have wanted to continue living.
Good heavens!
Well, yeah.
Gosh, I'm so happy. Well,
You're so happy you're not a runner?
I've kept living. I haven't run 100 miles. Goodness.
Well, some people. It is a wonderful. It's comforting, you know.
Well, for one thing, you know this is what you're doing. Look what you're doing. I know what I'm doing. I'm doing this myself. And it's yes, it's hard, but I'm continuing going. Here I am. I'm someplace else.
It smooths the rough spots off.
Yeah.
It really does. No question about it. My good friend who trained me, Pete Hansen, he chose, as he got older, his body gave out. And I always told him it was because he kept eating the local burger joints instead of eating health food. And his connective tissue gave out, Achilles tendons and all that. And he couldn't run, he tried other things, and finally he chose not to be here. Yeah. And I'm sure if he'd been able to keep running, he would still be around. Yeah. It's
You see
It's a
his
big deal.
smile. You see his face. You see his smile. Running is it. Running is it.
along with rock climbing
As long as yes.
and an occasional bicycle ride.
Yes. So you when did you do that? When did you do that 100 miles running?
It was 1974,
Okay.
and
And the Western States itself started in 1974,
the run.
right? The run. Yes.
Yeah, I started it in
You
1974.
you started it.
Yeah.
You did. It wasn't. Oh.
Well, there was a ride.
Yes. There was a ride, and then you started.
And then,
You. So.
well, there's
Gordy.
In 1973,
Gordy.
I ran a marathon
Yeah.
in under 3 hours. That had never been done by a guy who was over 200 pounds. And not to say I was elite, I was just pretty good for a big guy. The guy who won it ran like 2:20. He beat me in by a half hour, you know. And then later that month, I decided, with my ride and tie partner, Jim Larimer, to go down to the Castle Rock 50. He was taking his horse that we were going to use, through that ride as a training ride. And I said, I'm going to try to run it. And I made it in 9 hours. And what Drusilla Barner said about that is, well, if he can do the Castle Rock in 9 hours, he should be able to do our ride in 18.
Mm-hmm.
So they were thinking about me doing it. I said to Jim, when I heard about that, I said, no, it doesn't work that way. And it didn't, For one thing, Castle Rock is it goes through the big basin redwoods. It's cool and very comfortable, and it's in May. And the temperature probably never got above 85 or 80, maybe.
How lovely.
Yeah, so I know. But, the day I ran, best estimate I could get is it was 104.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Western States, yeah. So anyway, what happened was my substitute horse, I didn't know anything about buying horses. I just got lucky the first time, so I bought another horse. And I bought a horse with a chronic lameness problem that I didn't know about, and of course it went lame. And on the occasion of it going lame, Drusilla officially invited me to run the next year. And I said maybe, and
But you did.
Well, I thought I was going to buy another horse, but I'm a terrible procrastinator.
Oh,
So-
really? Oh, no.
I know.
Oh, well, okay, if you would say so.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, so I didn't get another horse. And
So instead,
I had to either sit along the sidelines or I had to run. And so when Jim and we won the ride and tie that year, and I gave myself a week to think about it, 7 weeks before the Western States, or the Tevis Cup. And so I thought about it for a week, and then I decided to go for it.
Okay.
And I did something that, proved really well, and that is what the horse people said is, if you can take your horse once a week from Michigan Bluff to Auburn, you're ready to do the Tevis. And so I simply duplicated that. I had people drop me off at Michigan Bluff, and I ran to Auburn.
yes.
And that was obviously enough. And I couldn't do it every week. I had to give myself
Okay.
a week and a half.
How many people were running with you, or were running
None.
as well?
For the training.
No, for the whole thing, for the real thing.
Oh, no, it was just me and the horse, the equestrians.
So the Western States started in 1974.
The run started in 1974, was me doing it.
Just you.
Just me.
How long did it take you?
23 hours.
Oh, but you did it.
23 hours and 42 minutes.
Wow. Wow.
It was close. I didn't think I was that close because I was right in the mix of the horses, but I forgot that, so I wouldn't get run over, I started 10 minutes early. And I forgot about that. So it was a good thing. Like Jim Edwards, a vet I just totally love, he vetted me through at Cool. Yeah. Listened to my heart, and he says, and I was being guide rided by a very pretty lady that I had my eye on. And yeah, imagine that. So he said, oh, because I was feeling kind of weird, you know, it's like
Then, yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
what T.S. Eliot says about between midnight and dawn,
Okay.
when there is no time and time that lasts forever. Yeah,
Okay.
people get really weird between midnight and dawn.
Okay.
And I was feeling pretty weird. And I needed her actually because I almost ran off the side of No Hands Bridge.
Hmm.
I couldn't stop turning after I came down the trail, but I was able to stop. And I was looking down at forever. It was,
So I hope if you're willing to run for this, think of this. Maybe you shouldn't.
So what I did was I asked Kathy, I said, let me put my thumb through your belt loop backwards so I can't pull away, and walk me slowly across the bridge. And she did, and then I was fine.
Okay.
You know, but yeah, I did need her. Anyway, Jim Edwards said, hey, you know, you don't have that much time. He was more aware of it than I was. He said, so no hanky-panky down there in the canyon. And I started racing the horses that last, I didn't want to let a horse pass me.
So you got faster.
I pushed the pace going into
So the horses
early
were
point.
tired too, of course.
Of course.
Okay.
But horses generally go uphill faster than people do.
Oh, yeah.
But I was really pushing
They've
that
got
last
4
little
legs.
bit.
Yes. Okay. Did you expect what has happened?
No. No, and what happened was the year after I ran, I was going to train up, now that I knew I could do it, I was going to train up to see how fast I could do it. And I overtrained, and I came down with chronic fatigue, you know, Epstein-Barr mononucleosis coming up. You know. Once you get it, you got it the rest of your life. I mean, they first told me I was going to be immune. I found out that was wrong. No, whenever it comes back every time you get knocked down. So I overtrained. I got sick, and this other guy from the Ride and Tie, Ron Kelly, he tried to do it, but he didn't talk to me, and he had never been on the trail before. I would have said,
Be careful.
you need to become very familiar with the part you'll do at night.
Oh, hell. Excuse me. Of course you do.
But he didn't. And so what happened was he got to No Hands Bridge, a mile and a half from where they stopped the clock at the city limits at Roby Point, and he quit.
Oh.
Because he told Bob Lind, as far as I was concerned, Auburn might have been 1,000 miles away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because he'd been seeing the lights of Auburn for a long time, because the trail just winds all over the place. You know, it's only 49 miles from Squaw Valley to Auburn by air, and they put 100 miles into that. So he'd been seeing the lights of Auburn for a long time. You know, for almost 20 miles, and you know, he had no idea that light up there was where it stopped.
Oh.
Yeah. So anyway, and then the next year, Cowman did it, and you know, I was at that.
So there was one other guy the second time,
and one other guy the third time.
And then what?
Well, what happened was
news.
By that time, I realized after when Cowman said he was going to do it, I said, "Oh, you know, we've got something here that other people would want to do, and we need to make this an event." And so I ran with him from Forest Hill Inn to make sure he didn't quit and didn't get lost. He spent a half hour talking to me at last chance, though, and he was a half hour over 24 hours. But it was enough to persuade Wendell to say, hey, let's make this a yearly event.
Yes.
And so I wrote a little ad for the Runner's World Classifieds, and we got, I don't know, 14, 15 people. And I recruited the guy, just running by my mom's house. I lived with my mom until I was 43 or 44, and found a woman I finally wanted to marry. And I was fussing with a fence, and he was running by, Andy Gonzalez, and I asked him where he was going. He said, Meta Vista, and I said, where are you coming from? He said, Colfax. I said, so you're going to run back?
You want to do this?
And I said, you know, you need to do this run.
This is a good thing for you to do.
And Andy was gifted and it was a really hot day, 4 degrees hotter than what I did, but he's a Pacific Islander background.
Mm-hmm.
Heat never bothered him. He didn't have, I stashed Gatorade along the road.
Mm.
He didn't.
Wow.
He just ran, and he beat me by 45 minutes. He beat my time by 45 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and he's an amazing guy. Unfortunately, he's got Parkinson's now.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
So when is it coming up this time?
It's going to be it's always the last full weekend in June.
The last full weekend in June.
Yeah.
Okay. And people need to, what's the maximum of the number of people who can
They
show?
allow 369 because they made it a wilderness area. A section just over the ridge.
Yeah.
And they made it a wilderness area, and the law says no competitive events in wilderness areas. And the combination of the ride and the run had enough political power that our congressman, God, who was that back then? Norm Shumway, maybe?
Don't worry about it.
But he actually introduced a bill to make us an exception to the Wilderness Act. And that scared the Forest Service so badly that they did an MOU with us and said, okay, we'll take this year, you can have that many, and that was 369. And I personally think it's absurd, because
To have 369 or,
I think we should have 700.
okay.
Yeah, I do. The trail can handle that. The only problem is Robinson Flat. There's just not parking there.
Okay.
But yeah, there's so many people. There's people who, they've been entering for 9, 10 years, and they can't get in because it's all a lottery, but it's based on each time you enter and lose, you get double that many entries.
Wow.
Or tickets.
Huh.
So,
What a thing. Wow.
It's not the way I would run it. I would get those last people automatic entries, but the 10-year people. But anyway,
But it isn't yours.
it's not mine.
It's not
No,
yours. Can you make it yours?
No.
Oh.
No, I wouldn't want to. I'll tell you, I'm a wonderful innovator. I'm a really lousy manager.
He's a wonderful innovator.
I am.
You do a lot of stuff.
I also wrote the first literature review and the first risk-benefit analysis on the benefits of sun exposure to suppress internal cancer and therefore lower cancer death. Because sun causes skin cancer, but almost nobody dies of skin cancer. But a lot of people die of internal cancer, and the more sun people get on a regular basis, the less likely they are to die of, less likely they are to get internal cancer, and therefore less likely to die. I was the first person to do that. I wrote the first risk-benefit analysis, which showed that for every person we lose to skin cancer death, we'll save 30 from internal cancer. And I've got the math to prove it. That was 1993. I'm an innovator, but a lousy manager.
So he's telling us that we should be out in the sun.
Don't burn.
Don't burn, just be out in the sun.
Yeah, everybody has a different tolerance for sun, and some people, like a friend of mine from Iceland, she says, for me it's 3 minutes. She's got this kind of translucent skin, and even she will tan eventually, but she has a really short time. Yeah, it's of course there's a lot of money. You don't hear about this because what would the chemical companies do if people quit using sunscreens? And there are good sunscreens and bad sunscreens. The ones that have chemistry in them to stop the sun, they let through the type of light that creates melanoma, which is the only seriously fatal skin cancer. The only one that's good is a physical sunscreen, which is zinc or titanium.
Which is what?
Zinc or titanium as the active ingredient.
Okay. Okay.
Am I getting too technical?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But there's a way to avoid cancer, and that is to let yourself be in the sun for a while, for a little while, every day.
Or 3 times a week or something.
Okay.
Like that. Yeah, yeah. And we don't get sun here between effective sun between middle of October to middle of February.
Okay. Gordon Ainsleigh. This is Gordon Ainsleigh. He's a big deal. Thank you very much for coming.
You're very welcome.
And congratulations.
Yeah, I mean,
Congratulations.
we should do this again so you can hear the rest of the story.
Yes, you're right. You're right. Okay. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you again.